Have you ever turned down a founder because you heard these gists?
Of course not. So remember, I'm usually the first check-in in many companies. So there's nothing to due diligence apart from the founder. Yes, there can be products that they built and so on. But the first thing I'm checking is that founder's credibility in the market. Many of the companies I've gone on to back have been introduced to me either by founders I've backed before. So those sees a company or Somto sees a company and says, hey, Mr. Olumide, I think you need to check out this company because they are in their ecosystem. They know the kind of founders you'd like. They know the kind of people they roll with. So they already know that Mr. Olumide would like this company.
What kind of deals that will entice you?
As an aside, I did some business with an older friend's friend. So I had an Egbon and I met his friend through him. And I did I think it was $1 million transaction with his friend. And his friend...
You got your fingers burnt, like in the very popular case of cloud commerce.
Yeah.
Right. Where the guy who actually happened to be your namesake, if I'm not mistaken, took your funds and had little to no explanation for what happened. Now, what happened to you, which obviously you bounced back from, seems to also be the order of the day even till today.
Yeah, I think that happens, and there's no doubt in every ecosystem, not just in the Nigerian ecosystem. But I think the reason why you even put up a 40% number is because of how it's reported and how it's told. In my portfolio, it's not up to 40% in that regard. Especially if you have done a proper due diligence in backing the right founders. You don't expect to see that at all. I'm not even sure what's the major reason companies fail? I think that's the first question we need to answer. Yes, founders, bad behavior, it's a reason companies fail. But you see stories like, a company raised $16 million and has failed. All of a sudden, everybody said, the founder has shit. What did they do with the money? Or what happened? Can you raise $16 million? What did you do with it? You have to also understand the mindset of venture. The mindset of venture is 0 or 1, right? So I'm not trying for you to raise money and gaze and just coast, right? You have found some product market fit, you have found scale, let's land grab. That's the venture space. And in an attempt to land grab, you could crash, right? Not necessarily because of bad behavior, but it could be market timing, it could be product adoption, it could be wrong strategy, it could be so many different things. But when the company dies, the narrative is that there's fraud that has happened. That doesn't mean that those kind of things do not happen. That doesn't mean that. But the investors are ready. The funny part is that the people that are shouting are not even investors that lost money. Like, are you crying more than the bereaved, right? But that's why I call out certain bad behavior, because those people should give the ecosystem a bad name that affects other people to raise. But it happens in different markets. So companies fail for several reasons. Yes, bad behavior could be one of them, but there are so many other reasons why companies fail. So a company can still raise $50 million and fail.
Absolutely. Thank you for nipping down at the bud, putting some perspective to it. One of the main things I was trying to talk about was the fact that, like you have already said, that one of the major contributing factors could also be the fact of delayed gratification and all. But then again, there are some other market forces, many times macroeconomic factors that really, for example, a change in policy could actually strip the entire thing to zero. And so I want to ask you, how do you do your due diligence before investing in a founder?
So remember, I'm usually the first check-in in many companies. So there's nothing to due diligence apart from the founder, right? Yes, there can be products that they built and so on. But the first thing I'm checking is that founder's credibility in the market. Many of the companies I've gone on to back have been introduced to me either by founders I've backed before. So those sees a company or Somto sees a company and says, hey, Mr. Olumide, I think you need to check out this company because they are in their ecosystem. They know the kind of founders you'd like. They know the kind of people they roll with. So there is you already know that Mr. Olumide would like this company.
No kind of deals that will entice you.
Know the kind of deals that are entitled. I know the kind of people, right? So it's almost like before you introduce someone, it's a reference. It's almost like you're doing the personal reference before you introduce that person, right? So that's why I tell people that before you introduce people, know why you're introducing them. Because I remember as an aside, I did some business with an older friend's friend. So I had an egbon and I met his friend through him. And I did I think it was $1 million transaction with his friend. And his friend came through and did what fulfilled his own part of the bargain. And I excitedly went to tell my Egon that, hey, Egon, this man, Mr. X, I did this business with him. He came through correct and he warned me. He said, you met him through me, right? You didn't ask me anything about him. And you had done $1 million with him. If anything had gone wrong, who will you come to call? I know he's solid though, and he's a good guy. But I'm saying, what if he wasn't? How would you do that without talking to me? You think, maybe you met him through me and you met him in the last 5 or 6 months or whenever time, but you still met him through me. So introducing people need to understand there's a burden also on you when you do that. So you should take that capital and use it wisely, right? It doesn't mean that you can't introduce someone and then they end up messing up. That's not on you. But you should have some level of confidence before putting your name on the line.
Because it's somewhere your credibility is.
Your credibility is.
Have you ever turned down a founder because you heard his gist?
Of course not. I think you've seen founders that or that has appeared in 3 techs, right? Like, how many companies do you have? Those kind of things. So the founder you're checking about their work history. Who did they work with before? They used to work in GT Bank or any people in GT Bank. What do they think about this guy? What was this person's work ethic? So then people say things around, oh, I can't kill myself. It's not my father's company, right? When they are working in certain businesses. That's the wrong mindset, because one time it would be your own company, not even your father's company. Would that mindset change? And people who want to ask about you, would ask people that were working in that company that what was this person's work ethic like? What this person's work ethic like was bad because it was not his father's company, so he didn't think he needed to apply himself or herself.